A silence settled over the world. Not the silence of peace, but the kind that hung the air just before a storm. Cities bustled, drones delivered packages, and the sky turned orange from another distant wildfire. To most, it was just another Tuesday. But for Arman Hale, seated behind a desk stacked with untouched reports on foreign intelligence breaches, it was a moment of quiet betrayal. Humanity had grown too good at ignoring the subtle tremors that warned of greater quakes. They had stopped listening. Arman's office sat in a low-security wing of the Global Monitoring Directorate, a sleek glass building tucked into a neutral European country that had never seen conflict firsthand. He wasn't a soldier nor a strategist, but a pattern analyst, a modern-day oracle buried in code. And the patterns he'd seen lately were troubling. Trade servers spiking in false traffic, sudden data voids across digital borders, and a peculiar rise of misinformation across languages that didn't normally interact. Something was happening, something coordinated. But when he brought it up to his superiors, they nodded with thin smiles, scribbled on digital pads, and muttered phrases like keep observing or global noise. The world didn't want bad news. Back home, in a quiet apartment overlooking the synthetic river skyline, Arman often watched the news flicker silently across buildings, holograms selling products, dramas, and revolutions that looked more like stylized marketing campaigns and cries for help. No one paid attention anymore. Not really. War had become entertainment. At most, it was a background concern, a topic for comment sections, not action. It was Mira, a freelance AI ethicist and his occasional partner in both argument and affection, who said it best during one of their late-night conversations. People don't care unless it touches their door. Empathy doesn't scale. Not yet. She had lived to follow her home country, a slow unraveling of a democratic structure under the weight of foreign interests disguised as aid. And when it collapsed, the world had sent hashtags and drones, but no hands. Arman didn't need to ask what that had done to her. It had hollowed her faith in institutions, even as she worked for them. She wandered now, consulting with NGOs that still believed in change, whispering to governments too scared to admit what they feared. But something about Arman's quiet conviction kept her orbiting him, like a satellite waiting for a signal worth transmitting. The signal came on a Wednesday. It wasn't loud. It was subtle. A sudden blackout of digital infrastructure across 3 mid-sized nations, all with histories of resisting international finance models. To the public, it appeared as random outages. To Arman, it was a blueprint, and he could trace it. The only problem was that no one else wanted to. He sent the report, flagged it with a red priority tag, and waited for hours. Then a day, nothing, not even an automated response. He tried reaching Mira, but her calm link returned a static error he'd never seen. Something deeper was unraveling, and this time, the threads weren't digital. They were human and fraying fast. That night, sleep didn't come. He replayed old transmissions, fed data into isolated neural models, ran simulations. And still, the patterns confirmed what his gut already knew. This was an accident. It wasn't even a warning. It was a rehearsal. An unseen hand was pushing, probing the edges of global attention, calculating how quietly a system could be dismantled while its guardian slept. When he stepped outside for air, the city was calm, almost elegant in its ignorance. Couples walked dogs. Children ran with holographic kites. Above them, sky pollution veiled the stars like a secret no one wanted to remember. He wondered if that was humanity's true gift. Not resilience, not intelligence, but the ability to sit still while the foundations of their world shifted underneath them. But Arman wasn't ready to sit still anymore. He returned to his console and opened a secure line. Not to his superiors, not to Mira, but to an old contact he'd promised he'd never speak to again. A fixer, a leak specialist, a former war architect turned whistleblower. If no one inside wanted to act, then someone outside had to. There were rules, of course, lines that shouldn't be crossed. But the map was already being redrawn by foreign interests and blind governments. What value did those lines still hold? A blinking cursor on the screen awaited the message. His fingers hovered over the keys. Once he sent it, he couldn't take it back. But maybe, just maybe, he could shake the silence. He began typing. The message was sent. Short, encrypted, impossible to trace without a key that only one person alive could decode. Arman sat back, hands trembling, not from fear, but from the pressure of decision that finally severed him from his old world. The fixer's reply came 2 hours later. Meet me where the city pretends to sleep. Vague, poetic, typical. But Arman knew what it meant. Beneath the core-level train station, in the off-grid service tunnels where surveillance feeds died and people went missing without headlines. He packed nothing. Trust was now a heavier liability than any equipment. Sliding through the silent corridors of his apartment block, he left behind a world of coffee cups, compliance, and calibrated apathy. The air in the tunnels was metallic, touched with mildew and the hum of sleeping machines. Artificial lights flickered overhead like they resented being awake. And in that space, under layers of engineered indifference, waited a man named Kael. Kael hadn't aged so much as hardened. His frame was leaner now, angular, cut by years spent dodging the world's blind spots. Once a decorated intelligence officer, now a digital ghost, Kael had helped design the very systems that muffled resistance and amplified distraction. Then he saw what they could do. Or maybe what they were meant to do all along. His disappearance from the directorate had been swift and final, leaving behind only rumors. Some said he defected, others that he died. But Arman had always known he was waiting for a reason to return. Kael didn't waste time. You're early, he said without looking up, fingers dancing across a dusty terminal connected to an array of scavenged servers. That tells me you're desperate. I'm not the one who's desperate, Arman replied, voice tight. I'm the one still inside. Kael chuckled dry and sharp. Then why are you out here? Because no one inside was listening. Because Mira was missing. Because the walls were closing in and pretending otherwise had become a luxury he could no longer afford. Arman dropped the data drive on the terminal. 3 blackout zones. Identical triggers. Coordinated silence in global financial markets. Hidden transactions, scrub metadata. This isn't cybercrime. It's a systems test. Kael scanned the files. Someone simulating collapse, he said after a moment. Not just infrastructure. Trust. If this goes live, it'll look like human error. Maybe a solar flare. Nothing traceable. Until people stop getting paid. Then chaos. He turned to Arman with eyes like frost. Who else knows? No one. Then we have a chance. It was a strange comfort, that phrase, we have a chance. It meant the door hadn't shut completely. That failure was inevitable. But it also meant the burden was theirs now. Alone, Kael stood and pulled a cracked display from the wall, revealing a deeper layer of systems Arman hadn't expected. A network running beneath the global grid, built on obsolete code and analog redundancies. We'll need noise, Kael muttered. Enough to mask our signal and pull attention elsewhere. You ever use deep-sea Trojans? Arman shook his head. I build maps. I don't plant bombs. Then learn fast. Because if we're going to expose this, we have to outplay gods pretending to be invisible. They work for hours in silence, broken only by the static chirps of aging servers. Arman found himself adapting faster than he thought possible, the urgency sharpening every instinct. With Kael's guidance, he learned to lace triggers inside redundant satellite feeds, reroute secure lines through forgotten Cold War-era switches, and encode data inside seemingly corrupted traffic logs. Each move felt like a whisper through a labyrinth, hoping that somewhere on the other side, someone would hear. But not everyone was asleep. At 3:47 Standard Time, an alert pulsed across Kael's console. The Directorate's signature. A trace ping. Silent, probing, but unmistakable. They know someone's moving in the dark, Kael said. We have 10 minutes, maybe less. Arman stared at the screen. They don't know it's me. Yet. But they'll start connecting dots, Kael replied, hands already dismantling the terminal. You want to survive this, you disappear with me. Right now. Arman hesitated. Mira could still be alive. Maybe inside one of those blackout zones. Maybe not. But if there was even a chance she was, if the silence could still be broken before it deepened into collapse, then leaving wasn't an option. Not yet. I need to go back, he said quietly. Kael stopped. Then you'll die. Maybe, Arman replied. But maybe I won't sit quietly. Kael watched him for a long moment, then handed over a secure shard. This has everything we built. Don't send it. Not until the storm hits. And when it does, make sure the world can't look away. Arman pocketed the shard and turned, stepping back into a world still convinced it was awake, unaware of how close it stood to the edge. And somewhere far above, in a tower lined with glass and data streams, an empty desk blinked quietly in red. Arman Hale's credentials had just been suspended.